This is your First Alert Weather Breakdown, a deep dive into how weather works with meteorologist Evan Thomason.
Hey, good morning. Welcome on into the First Alert Weather Breakdown. I'm meteorologist Evan Thomason here on the First Alert Weather Breakdown podcast. Hey, thank you very much for joining me here for the day today. It is a lovely Thursday. Beautiful blue skies and sunshine. It's comfortable temperatures. What else could you ask for out of a Thursday? Hey, for today alone, it's good, but most of you are probably here because we're talking storms here for this coming weekend. Again, I'm First Alert Meteorologist Evan Thomason. I'll give you all the details on that running on down here in the next little while. I do want to make it known, literally about 5 minutes ago, we gave you the First Alert with an app push for this, but the crew Gemini, we've been talking about this throughout most of the morning show, whether or not it was going to get moved, well, it has. Crew of Gemini is now on the same day. It's on Saturday still. They moved it 2 hours earlier, so the parade will start at 1 p.m. instead of 3 p.m. And I specifically want to tailor that news into weather because it's due to weather. We have storms coming into the Arklatex here mainly throughout the day through a good portion of Saturday here for you coming on up. Now, I will say it's very intriguing that the officials just decided to move the parade 2 hours earlier. It's a good call to at least move it. I'm just not sure personally if they moved it enough because you're still getting storms through a good portion of Saturday. To be fair, I think the worst of it comes in the second half of the day, which I know it's still in the second half of the day, but now you at least make it earlier to where you end off the parade a little earlier. So maybe you dodge the worst of the system, but we'll see. We'll keep you first alert on this forecast here in this podcast. We got a lot to get to, so let's get into it. We're talking about a stormy weekend. We have all the thorough details on that. And then we have a Met Chat, which is a recording between me and the three other meteorologists that we recorded yesterday that we kind of recapped the entirety of the winter storm between all four of us. I know we've had a few recaps on this podcast with some of our other meteorologists. CJ and Jake have been able to talk about it over the past 2 weeks or so. But we wanted to get all four of us together, get Matt's thoughts in on it as well, see what we learned as well from the system. I believe this is kind of the last time that we'll talk about the winter storm, especially because we do have very warm temperatures still on the way. So we'll talk about all that more later, but let's get into the forecast first and foremost. Again, a lot to get to into the day today. Mattress Plus Skycam. Live look out at it into Shreveport. Again, it's a lovely Thursday. If only this were Saturday, it'd be amazing. Comfortable temperatures again. Bright, beautiful blue skies and sunshine. And no chance of rain, at least for today. Mostly the same forecast here for tomorrow. If anything, temperatures increase a little more into the day here for tomorrow, but not drastically here for you. All right. Anyways, Texarkana Window World Sky Cam, same thing. Just seeing a trace amount of high cirrus clouds, but that's it here at this hour. So here's your headlines here to start you out on your morning. Got temperatures pretty much in the 50s now. We'll take a look at the current temps in just a moment, but essentially it's a cooler morning that we had in store leading into some warm afternoons here for both Thursday and Friday, but certainly the biggest weather headline is surrounding around these storms coming here for this weekend. Temperatures currently, let's talk more on that here for you. Temperatures around the 50s all around widespread around the Arklatex. Little chilly, not t-shirt and shorts weather, but it's going to be getting to that standard here later today. Highs do get dragged up into the low to mid 70s later on. That'll be fantastic. Tomorrow, if anything, could break a sweat out for Friday afternoon with highs approaching 80 degrees here for some of us to wrap up the work week here for your Friday. And then we cool off into the weekend. That's all thanks to this system, which we are, again, going to thoroughly talk about. It's a low-pressure center, and a cold front that is coming in essentially 2 days. It's one of the biggest, I wouldn't say worries, but biggest issues with this system is just how big it is. We have a lot of rain to get through once it comes here, which is going to basically get us underneath the rain showers for a long duration of time here coming in this weekend. So the main thing I'm watching out for is just the rain itself, which is kind of good news because we're not worrying too much about the severe weather threat. The severe weather threat technically is there. We'll go over that in just a little bit. But overall, it stays low It's not medium or high that I'm expected for these storms to have a severe weather risk. So essentially what I'm getting at is I'm mostly just, if I'm concerned about anything with this system, it's going to be the rainfall itself. Maybe a little chance of some flash flooding in some areas. Even though we are in a drought, which, hey, good news. We're helping out our drought. It needs it. But unfortunately, yeah, it could go too much within such a short amount of time. So here's the system. We got a couple mixed showers. This is a live look now into our satellite picture here currently as of Thursday at 10:30 p.m. or 10:30 a.m. Excuse me. What my air is trying to point towards is some mixed showers in the Rocky Mountains up into Wyoming, Utah, and Colorado. There you see the trail of moisture coming out of the Pacific Ocean in front of this cold front, and this is dragging out some showers that are essentially feeding in storms across the Rocky Mountains here for the day today, and some of that might even get it into New Mexico and western Texas. But again, western Texas. This is the system that's going to take its time coming on over into the Arctic, but we've already seen a rapid increase of moisture that you can see with the cloud cover coming in along the cold front. Again, what I'm trying to get at is this system's moving eastward, and eventually it's going to crash into the Arctic here and eventually pull out moisture out of the Gulf, which is going to help it supply, or it's going to help supply itself with more moisture, essentially, as we roll on into the weekend. So let's track this system as it moves eastward. So here throughout the day today, it's mainly just camping across the Rocky Mountains here for your Thursday. Into Friday, you can see it kind of just stands still. Even around this time on Friday, it's still mostly around the Rocky Mountains, Arizona, and New Mexico. I think Friday night is when this starts to make a beeline eastward, and we're going to start to feel a lot more rain showers into the Midwest towards Kansas, Oklahoma, and central Texas. And some of that could even reach, yes, the northern edge of the Arctic on Friday night. And again, pretty much the northern edge of the Arctic only for Friday night. Our main troubles are coming on Saturday. Again, this is going to be widespread storms on Saturday. Just so you know, I have another future track coming up after this, which is just going to be only tailored to the Arctic. But this is just in a synopsis. Rain showers throughout the afternoon and throughout especially the nighttime hours before maybe having a stray shower or two left for Sunday early morning still, especially in our eastern parishes and counties. But hopefully, I think once we get into lunchtime, I think that's when it completely dissolves and completely rolls away. All right, so that was our long-term future track. Now, let's just have a future track centralized only on the Arctic. Here it is. So again, today and tomorrow, plenty of sunshine. Nothing to worry about with the skies. In fact, all the way through 5, 6 p.m., even when you're headed home from work, from school, going back to the house, you're just fine. Then we get into Friday night. That's when the cloud cover starts to gather itself. That's when we also see Friday late night. Maybe it's some stray showers again in the very northern edge of the Arctic. They're up into Idabel and the Queen, almost in the overnight hours Friday leading into Saturday. This is eventually going to lead into the first main push of light to moderate rainfall, which happens first Saturday morning, pretty much in those spots along and north of I-30. As systems typically do from the west to east, they start in the northern edge of the Arctic and make their way southward. So again, this is going to be a rainy Saturday morning for essentially only for areas along and north of the I-30 corridor. The rest of the region should be still pretty dry there for the morning hours. Now, if you want to tailor this to kind of the Gemini forecast here for Shreveport, if you're kind of loading up the floats around 9, 10 a.m., that's fine. But here's the issue, what I'm seriously finding out with the parade timing here throughout the day on Saturday. This is 11:30. I know the main chunk and the main widespread storm coverage is still across Texarkana through the middle of Saturday. But here's the thing. This system is going to rapidly spread southward at a pretty quick pace, and by lunchtime, I mean, look at the picture around lunchtime, and this is like 11:30 at lunchtime. This is like the early half of lunchtime. You're already filling in a good amount of pockets of light to moderate rainfall, even by 11 o'clock noon in for your Saturday, and then by 1 o'clock, there's the start of Gemini. I mean, it just doesn't look good. You're maybe getting a brief dry hole in there, but you're still filling the skies with lots of light to moderate rainfall there throughout the early afternoon hours. Now, I will credit them this. For those trying to attempt Gemini, we'll credit them this. Moving it, period, was the right choice to do. And moving it early earlier in the day is at least an improvement to some extent. Because here's the issue with Saturday afternoon and Saturday evening. We get these massive, moderate to heavy rainfall showers then cruising on through. And this is basically the very tail end of the system. Again, the midday hours, we still have scattered storms, but it's not as much heavy rain until that starts to form out a lot more in heavier bunches towards the middle of the afternoon, towards 4 or 5 p.m., rolling right through Shreveport, and that could cruise into some of our southern parishes and counties still as late as 9 to 10 p.m. until fully getting out all the wet weather, hopefully by Sunday morning. You see on the very tail end of the system, early Sunday, still could be some light rain out to some of our eastern counties and parishes there for early Sunday, but that's pretty much what we're watching out for with this system. So, rainfall totals, about 1 inch to 3 inches of rain. This is going to be impressive here around the Arklatex, especially with some of those purple shades. I think everybody gets a solid inch, and this is the thing I'm probably watching out for the most. And I think that's what the National Weather Service is, too, because their excessive rainfall risk is especially a slight risk in effect for areas of southwestern Arkansas, pretty much all of our counties there. And it's in effect for far northeastern Texas and those parishes along and north of the I-20 corridor. Overall, though, everybody's in the green shade, which means everybody is getting a hefty amount of rainfall here in the Arklatex. So that's just the risk when it comes to like flash flooding and rainfall only. Again, the slight risk is in effect for about half the Arklatex. The green shade is only in effect for everybody for the entire region. What I'm getting at is we only have a green shade in effect for the entire Arklatex here for your Saturday. This is a marginal risk, a 1 out of 5 chance of severe weather showing up, which, again, not likely. It's on the very low end. We're talking maybe a low end of some strong winds coming on through, but I shouldn't see tornadoes with this. I shouldn't see too much hail problems either coming on through with this system here for your Saturday. All right, lastly, just tailoring this in the last part of the forecast here for you. Highs, a little bit of a roller coaster for the next couple of days as discussed. It's very warm with the sunshine here for Thursday and Friday. Cooler off in for the weekend. Now for specialty forecast, again, a lot is happening here for this weekend. One of the things is Valentine's Day. And again, as mentioned, I kind of want to stress out this theme, especially through these forecasts. The later on you wait in the day on Saturday, the worse it's going to get. I don't think until maybe Saturday around like 9, 10 o'clock are things going to finally start to clear up on Saturday alone. But up until that point, you're just continuing to slowly drive up the precipitation rates, increase the rain coverage as well with more numerous storms showing up in the afternoon and evening. So that's why I'm like, Gemini, it's now at 1 o'clock, but even then we still have storms even for 1 and 2 p.m. So it's interesting, the decision. If you plan to go out there, please bring an umbrella. Again, it's an improvement to 3 p.m., but you're still going to get rained on. You're still going to get rained on there for Saturday. This is the best part about the weekend forecast. Crew of Highland, this is running Sunday at 2 p.m. We have stray showers, as discussed, happening maybe early Sunday morning. They should definitely be gone by noon at the latest. Which means nothing but ample sunshine there throughout the day on Sunday. Crew of Highland is looking fantastic. Maybe just wear a long sleeve shirt for the 60s. That's the only day where we have actually highs in the 60s. Highs are in the 70s, maybe even touching lower 80s here throughout our work weeks with beautiful conditions. No chance of rain at all during our weekdays. It's unfortunately the weekend that's looking pretty bad. 80% chance of storms again on Saturday, 40% on Sunday, mainly for early Sunday morning. Again, everything should be cleared out definitely by lunchtime on Sunday and for the rest of that day. So, all right. That was look at your forecast. We are now going to recap the winter storm. Let's see. I do see. I want to before I tailor in my next segment here. I did want to peek at YouTube for any questions. GT Maxilla asks, could we be expecting flooding here? Potentially. I will say, thankfully, our ground has a lot of room to hold the moisture because it hasn't really rained here per se. The winter storm, believe it or not, that we're about to talk about in the upcoming Met Chat, didn't really change around much in regards to the drought level at all. We're still in a pretty hefty drought here, and that's going to help out our drought. What I'm trying to say is because our ground is in a drought, it can usually hold in a lot more moisture rather than just leaving it to the wayside and leaving it to the streets. So Yes, we could be expecting flooding, especially in areas which get rainfall for a significant portion of time. As mentioned in the future track, um, some areas of the Arklatex could be stuck with consistent rainfall for like 6-7 hours. And again, that starts as early as lunchtime. That's why I'm like 1 p.m. for the start time for Gemini. Ugh, still. But that continues to get worse and worse as the afternoon progresses. And really, the peak of the coverage I'm expecting is through the late afternoon and evening hours on Saturday, where we really ramp up the rainfall through the Arklatex. But great question, and thank you for asking it on our YouTube page. I really appreciate it. Hey, coming up next, don't leave. Stick around. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we will have the Met Chat on deck, recapping our major winter storms. See what lessons all the meteorologists learned, including myself, from the event. We have all that kind of a recap again, a big recap of a major winter storm that happened 2.5 weeks ago. So yeah, we'll be playing that after a quick commercial break after this. Had a brain fart there. Enjoy. Me, CJ, Matt, and Jake after this. Hey, welcome on back to a Met Chat. Hey, I'm meteorologist Evan Thomason here, joined by CJ Cartledge, Jake Lambright, and Chief Meteorologist Matt Jones. Hey, it's now February. We're in the second month of what is usually winter here, but I think we've already had our own fill of winter, just from one storm alone. And how long has it been now? It's been 2.5 weeks, I think. I believe that's the ballpark for it, yeah. I remember last weekend was in the 60s and 70s. It didn't even feel like we had a winter storm two weeks before that, essentially. So it kind of came, and it stuck around. Don't get me wrong, it stuck around throughout that work week, too, that followed that. But then once the warmth came in, it was done like that. So
Yeah.
We are here to kind of recap the winter storm in a way. And I want to tailor this a little more to what lessons did we learn a little bit about this, because hey, we can always have a good learning experience, especially with these kinds of storms. I know it's February. I know we have warm temperatures in the outlook, but learning for next year, because these winter storms always come and go and come around each and every kind of winter, it seems like, and to a certain degree, first and foremost. So I guess I just want to open it up to the floor. Just whoever has kind of a lesson or a big theme of what the winter storm gave us over the past year. I can start if you want, because I kind of have one. But if anybody else wants to start, be my guest.
You can go ahead.
Okay,
What was
fair
the
enough.
theme?
Trees. Something that we've talked about always with kind of winter storms, period.
But I feel like that specifically tree branches and falling and trees particularly coming down to the ground thanks to the winter storm, this particular one as well. I don't think I realized how much of this kind of winter system would change the landscape. If you imagine just a snowstorm usually falls as soft little snow flakes, that kind of thing. Doesn't really put too much of an impact on trees specifically falling over. But specifically, again, because we had the ice that put the weight on the branches that helped it fall down a lot more. And I remember, for those of you that don't know, I got sent down to Alexandria. But when I came and drove back up on Tuesday after the winter storm hit, trees, I wouldn't say everywhere and every single tree was down, but I was just surprised at the extent to the amount of debris I saw on the kind of just the sides of the roads, even on the interstate. And even then, this week, DOTD has put out a press release about them cleaning up all of the debris off the sides of the roads. So it's done so much kind of change and alteration of the landscape more than what I thought a typical winter storm could do. Obviously, that caused some power outages as well. I will say Monroe specifically felt a lot more of the bulk effect of that. We did a little bit too, but I just did not expect this much tree damage, to be honest, with this kind of a system. And it just goes to show you the weight and power of ice, particularly. So yeah, kind of wild.
It's kind of interesting that you say that, because I was going to say the opposite. I actually think, I mean, because you were driving up from the south, that area did get more ice. But as far as the Shreveport-Bossier metros and a lot of our area, we were spared. We got much less tree damage and power outages than I was anticipating. So, it really depended on where you were in the Arklatex with this winter storm. Because like for, Caddo, Bossier parishes, I mean, we really dodged a bullet. It was all pretty much sleet. I mean, there was a little bit of ice and freezing rain, but that sleet helped us out. So in my opinion, it wasn't nearly as bad as it could have been, to be honest, for Shreveport and Bossier. But again, you came up from the south, so you drove up through like Natchitoches Parish and, DeSoto, and those areas got more ice. But it was really a tricky, like that was what the tricky part of the storm was, is that it was just location by location. Some places did get significant freezing rain, but other spots like Shreveport and Bossier really just got mainly sleet.
Yeah, it was a pretty bad scene, honestly. It was, I believe, the worst ice storm or winter storm that I had forecasted for here in the Arklatex since I've gotten here. I would say that impacted the Arklatex. Last year's was worse in terms of snowfall, of course, across the Gulf Coast states, that historic snowstorm. But the worst ice storm or winter storm that's impacted the Arklatex was pretty much this year for ever since I've been here, since 2023 of June. But I would say it did some extensive damage for sure. It left the ice on the roadways and on the streets for quite a few days, and it impacted travel. And as mentioned before with Evan and Matt, it caused some trees to fall out there. So that's just one of the many things, or one of the new things that we've learned that that can happen when ice falls here around the Arklatex.
And this is probably the worst I've seen since 2021, and I say that this was not as bad as 2021, as many of you that were here for that probably saw with this past winter event. And I don't know, I'm kind of in a unique place. I saw 2021. That's probably the winter weather event I remember the most vividly as far as big significant. And then last year I was down in Alexandria when we got that 2 to 3 feet or 2 to 3 inches of snow, I should say. And that was interesting. Honestly, that was perfect, though. It snowed, got to look at it for a day, and then it melted by that night. This, though, the impact stuck around much longer. That's just the thing with ice, especially on the roads and those shaded areas. But really learned a lot forecasting this event and, of course, seeing the impacts. I guess it's not a huge surprise, but I remember showing power outages during the storm and in the Arklatex, DeSoto, Red River Parish, and then back into East Texas, Panola, Shelby County. Those were some of the areas with the most outages. Whenever those maps came out after the fact with total freezing rain, sleet accumulations, was able to break those up. I even talked about those a little bit on the podcast a few weeks ago. The areas with the highest accumulations were the areas with the most power outages, which isn't too surprising in hindsight. But overall in the Arklatex, I know some saw impacts, especially with power outages, but compared to Northeast Louisiana and areas like Oxford, I think we got really lucky.
Yeah.
I had some friends in the Monroe area sending me pictures, kind of sharing the experience of what was going on there. Power was out for days. Had a friend there without power 7 to 10 days after the storm. I mean, the impacts there were just terrible, and it looks like the community still has a lot to go as far as cleaning up, restoring some local businesses, restaurants, homes. They definitely have a long road to recovery ahead.
Such a powerful system that even left traces of ice and power outage problems as far east as Mississippi as well. And other of those spots. I remember looking at the power outages too, especially the Sabine Parish. I don't think the numbers do the justice, but I think it was at one point like 50%, at least 50% of Sabine Parish was without power at one point during the ice storm, which was just kind of wild and bonkers to think about here around the region. So I think the other thing I want to tailor this discussion to is the amount of, I think someone briefly mentioned, but the accumulation of ice. This stuck around for days, and we had temperatures above freezing, I think as soon as Monday. Very briefly on Monday, but it still counted. We still had temperatures in the 40s and 50s getting up into the middle part of the week. I think I remember from that work week on Wednesday and Thursday. But still, the ice stuck around on the ground as late as that following weekend still, even though temperatures were still above freezing, I would think we had a brief cool down in the weekend after. But what I'm trying to get at is some of this ice and mixed winter precip, including the sleet, it just stayed stuck to the ground for so long because of how much there was on it. Some of it melted away day by day, but it was still there. It still made travel hazardous, and that's why a bunch of our schools still ended up being closed through Wednesday, Thursday, and I think a scarce few of them were close to the end of the week too, which was quite bonkers to just see the accumulation. I mean, usually when you when we kind of think temperatures above freezing, it's like, okay, everything melts away. It's real quick, real easy like rain, but that was not the case. Everything had to thaw out eventually. And the other thing I want to tailor this to as well is that the temperatures at night kept getting below the freezing mark as well. So everything kept refreezing, and it was like, okay, the ice is basically like, okay, we can recover, we can pack ourselves on in before dealing with another day of thawing out again. So, and I want to tell that also to think of our forecast recently. All of this work week, we've been waking up to 50s and 60s. And again, just 2-3 weeks ago, we've been packing in temperatures in the teens and 20s every single night to re-emphasize this ice storm in place. So again, this was not just a storm that's surrounded around the ice that all happened across the weekend. It's just favorable conditions for the ice to stick around still throughout that following work week afterward.
Yeah. And as far as this particular winter storm, it was very humbling to forecast. I was chatting with the National Weather Service. One of the toughest things to forecast is winter precip types, because you have to look at the soundings aloft, you have to basically slice through the atmosphere, different layers, and look at the soundings. And even up to, I think the main push of precip happened, I believe it was, I think it was Saturday night into early Sunday morning, if not mistaken. That's when the heaviest stuff came through, was like early Sunday morning when we had some thunder and lightning with that freezing rain and sleet. But even up to that evening, even Saturday evening, the National Weather Service was pretty confident, and we were pretty confident it was going to be a mainly freezing rain. And yet an hour before it started happening, the soundings changed the last second and ended up mainly being sleet for Shreveport and Bossier. So I guess it was just the lessons learned is it's just so tricky to try to forecast precip type, because it just takes a degree or two difference in the atmosphere, and it changes from freezing rain to sleet. That makes a huge difference. So it's kind of humbling. It's very frustrating.
And to kind of
May I
piggyback
also
off what
say, what were you saying, Jake?
Oh, I didn't mean to cut you off, but to kind of piggyback off what you were saying, I did an episode on the podcast a few weeks ago where we talked with NWS on the podcast about weather balloons and that data, how important it is. And that's a prime example of why, while models have done a better job, they're still not perfect. And having that actual atmospheric data is so important for us in the now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna mention how saying wintry precip over and over and over again was kind of a mouthful too. You couldn't even say what exact precip type that we were expecting, because it could just change just like that. Between freezing rain and sleet is such a very close margin here. And then what I've been looking at, pretty much of what's been in my head while forecasting it, was like warm nose. you guys all what a warm nose was, and that's pretty much what we were dealing with that storm. Pretty much in the atmosphere where you have a warmer layer of air and then temperatures sharply reach back below freezing. That's what gave us the different precip types like sleet and freezing rain. That's why we didn't see much snowfall, because of that warm nose, or that warm layer in the higher in the mid atmosphere there, or the mid troposphere, as I should say. But yeah, that's pretty much what was going on. The warm nose kept our meteorologists guessing here at which precip type was expected for that system.
Yeah, and I will say one more thing, that the models did a fantastic job with this storm. I mean, honestly, like 7 to 10 days in advance of this thing, it was looking like we were going to get a winter storm, which is pretty amazing. Like the models really
Right.
did a fantastic job, honestly.
I like to give also props to you, Matt, because I know you're the ultimate caller of kind of the first alert weather days. We issued those like Tuesday, I think, that week for that next weekend. And when we issue first alert weather days, we always issue them in advance, but we always want to make sure like we're certain that there is going to be a chance for severe weather at this time and at this in the Arklatex here for you. And again, we issued that like 5 days out. In the time I've been here, I don't think I've seen us issue that like that far in advance. I've seen us issue like 2-3 days in advance, but not like 5.
And the reason the reason that people are asking me, actually, I'm glad we're discussing this. People are asking me, why are you issuing them for the days following? It's completely sunny. Well, the reason we extended those first alert days well past the winter storm is because we talked about earlier, because of the road impacts and the fact that it would refreeze every single day. And so that's why I think I extended it like 2 days even past the winter storm, because just the roads were horrible. So
yeah, you extended it till Tuesday at noon. I remember that's when the extreme cold warning had expired.
Yeah,
because temperatures were reaching close to negatives out there in the morning.
It was a 5-day marathon. Friday to Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah, it was a long. It was a long. We were all very tired.
Yeah,
that's true. I guess one of the last things I want to think about as well is with the road closures. I think, what was it? Just to go show you how bonkers the system, like, and the longevity of it. I think I-49, the overpass in Shreveport, how long was that closed for? That had to be closed between like Friday midday all the way. I think I want to say it didn't reopen until the following Thursday.
It was a long time.
It was like a whole week.
Yeah, it was very long
to think about. But you understand now why ice freezes on bridges first, and I can definitely see that coming up northward, up toward Shreveport in my drive. So, quite the wild system to think about. It's just the perfect storm. It's last little thought about this perfect storm. You had 3 different things happen. You had moisture aloft up in the upper atmosphere coming out of the Gulf and out of the Pacific Ocean. 2 different bodies of water. It wasn't just the Gulf either. And then you got the cold air coming straight at the surface that was absolutely bitter cold sharp. And the combination of all those is what created our kind of wintry precip atmosphere. And that's why I've kept finding myself at work as well, and on air specifically, just saying winter precip. Because I'd have to list like all the different winter precip types of anything that we could get, because you could have gotten anything. As Matt said, we were expecting freezing rain and ice, and just an hour later, bam, just a change to over to sea mostly. So it just goes to show you how complicated this is. And yeah, that's something we'll definitely take going forward. We'll try to do our best, obviously, forecasting like this kind of setup, but like it's so difficult to include and specifically talk about different winter precip types. So, the last thing I will get into, the very last thing that I want to discuss just for a solid minute or two, is the next 2 weeks. I don't think we're having this at all for the rest of winter, right?
I don't either.
I think I'm seeing 70s and like t-shirt and shorts weather for the next couple. Hey, which is very comfortable, I will say.
But that also brings about, which we can discuss in a future podcast, that brings about maybe an early start to severe weather season. I don't know. We'll see.
Potentially, possibly.
So
I could definitely see it. I did want to mention last year around this time, I think like late February or early February, we saw temperatures reach 90 degrees in Texarkana.
90?
I think it reached like 88 or 90, or even Shreveport reached like high 80s, but we were dealing with these same type of temperatures around a year ago today, like mid to late February. It's insane. We're dealing with the same thing right now.
Didn't we reach the 80s a couple days ago? Was it back on
We
Monday?
did.
We did.
We
We
did.
reached a few times. We actually reached it a few times the last couple weeks.
I think we saw 81 on Monday.
There was
Yeah.
a winter storm that happened here 3 weeks ago, right?
Yep. Typical Arklatex.
Just
And
swings back and forth. I keep using the phrase like temperature roller coaster on air when it comes to these certain things. So
Mm-hmm.
it's
because
wild.
it is.
And one more,
yeah.
I know we're running long. One more thing I know I just want to briefly mention. I was kind of surprised when we got the latest drought update monitor that the winter storm really had like no impact on our drought. I thought for sure we'd see some dent, but nothing.
Right. It looked like it was so much water out there on the roadways as it was all melting. It looked like it was like flood like waters out there, but
No impact.
no impact.
Wow.
Hopefully we get some out of this system this weekend.
I was
Hopefully.
gonna say that. Yeah. I keep using like good and bad on air because it's good for the drought. It's just bad timing because you got Valentine's Day, crew of Gemini, anything Saturday plans.
Mhm.
Good luck.
Right.
how it goes.
Any final thoughts, Jake?
No, I'm like Evan said, the timing on this weekend weather is terrible, but we do need the rain. We're looking at 1 to 3 inches. And the good news is, I mean, for us, I really don't see much in the way of severe weather. And this time of the year, especially with how warm and humid we are, it's great that we're not dealing with a substantial threat for strong storms.
I agree.
I feel like we'll get into severe weather season a little later on.
Yeah.
And
Oh, we
it's
will.
coming up.
We always do.
Yep. All right. Thank y'all for joining me for this Met Chat. I appreciate it. Thank y'all for joining, and I'll toss it back over to me on the desk. Hey, have a great rest of your Thursday when I'm putting this out. See ya.
Yeah.
As I said, have a great rest of your Thursday. I know this episode ran just a little bit long, but hey, lots of great information between the full forecast and that Met Chat that went over the winter storm. I want to give a quick shout out on the YouTube stream real quick to Ken Trell for watching. Appreciate it from you and Carthage there. Appreciate it, my man. Hey, we are rolling in with another forecast. One more weather podcast here for tomorrow, the first start with a breakdown that's going to go a lot more thoroughly. Yes, even more so into those weekend storms. So we got one more weather podcast to essentially preview Saturday storms. That'll be tomorrow, 10:30, same time, same place. Be there, be square, and most importantly, stay weather aware. Have a great rest of your Thursday, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.